Good afternoon, Chairman. I can now confirm it is 4:10, the live stream has commenced and we are ready to start the meeting.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the Development Control meeting of the 13th of January 2021. I'd like to advise that today we'll be using Zoom to provide a live stream to members of the public. Please can we ask that you bear with us as we are dealing with numerous internet connections and sometimes this may cause a slight delay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Christina Webb will be your Zoom host for today and Rob Tate will be the officer presenting during the meeting. Matt Seven is here to offer IT support if required and Christina Webb will be clerking the meeting today. During the meeting, all participants, except for the chairman, will be muted and this should remain during the whole of the meeting unless you have indicated you would like to speak. May I take this opportunity to remind members that all members are invited to participate in the meeting, but would ask that you use the raise hand button which can be found at the bottom of the participant screen, should you wish to speak on any matter. The chairman will be notified of your request and he will then invite you to speak. Once you have been called to speak, please could we ask you to unmute yourself and then once spoken, mute yourself once again. Anyone who has telephoned into the meeting will be invited to speak after all those that have raised their hands have spoken. When asking a question, please could we ask members to refer to page numbers within the report agenda for ease to officers. If we have to adjourn the meeting, the chairman will advise of this and the anticipated length of adjournment. When voting on an application, this will be undertaken by a roll call of those members present. Once your name is called, please unmute yourself and respond accordingly. When confirming the minutes and noting delegated and appeal decisions, unless any member raises an objection on these matters, these will be confirmed by assent. Members can only partake in voting on an application if they have been present for the entire discussion on that application. Thank you, Chairman. If we could now undertake a roll call of members present. Councillor Anderson.
Present.
Councillor Bird. No. Councillor Camden.
Present.
Councillor Fairhead. Present. Councillor Flaxman-Taylor.
Present.
Councillor Freeman.
Present.
Councillor Lorne.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Mogford.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Myers.
Present.
Councillor Wainwright.
Present.
Councillor Williamson.
Present.
Councillor Wright.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Present.
May I advise you that Caroline Watling, Monitoring Officer, David Glacing, Director of Planning and Growth, Dean Minns, Planning Manager, Rob Tate, Planning Officer, and myself, Christina Webb, Executive Service Officer, are present at the meeting. Chairman, we can now start the agenda items.
Thank you, Christina. So we move to item number 1. Have we any apologies for absence, please?
I have apologies from Councillor P. Hammond and we have Councillor Camden substituting for him.
Thank you. And item number 2, any declarations of interest? Please indicate to Christina, please.
Yes, I have item 6 is relative, so I shall leave immediately that item comes up.
Okay, Councillor Lorne. Anybody else?
Only me, Chair, in as much as the first item for discussion tonight is in my ward.
Thank you. Councillor Mogford, could I ask you to turn your camera on, please? We can't see you.
Okay then. So we move to item number 3, the minutes, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of December 2020, which can be found on pages 5 to 23. Everybody happy with those minutes?
Mr. Chairman, could I just raise a matter? Obviously, declarations of interest last time. I and other councillors didn't declare an interest that we were on the working party.
Okay.
So we had to leave the meet. Obviously, left the meeting for that item, which was item 6. Can that be recorded somewhere?
Yes, certainly.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that everybody? Yep.
I will amend the minutes to reflect.
Okay. Thanks,
you.
Christina. So we now move to item number 4, which is the application of Oak Park Farm, Mill Road, Borough Castle. And I invite Robert Tate, the planning officer, to present on pages 24 to 38 of your agenda. So over to you, Rob. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. I'll just get my screen up to share. Okay, so the site is accessed off Mill Road, Borough Castle, up here. Just show this as well so you can see it a bit clearer. Here's where the access is. To the west of the site is the Cherry Tree Holiday Park, and there's some sporadic development down here as well. So the proposal is to change the use of the area around the fishing lakes to create a small-scale holiday park consisting of 12 fixed wigwam cabins and other associated infrastructure. The wigwams will be situated within the existing setting of the trees and the fishing lakes, as we can see on this slide here, and sequentially sited in flood zone 1, as we can see in this hashed area here is the flood zone 1, to mitigate any risk of flooding. A more artistic representation of the scheme is here as well on this side, showing the existing watercourse, which we'll come and discuss later on, running around the side, and then the existing screening as well between the fishing lakes themselves and Mill Road, which runs just over here as well. So the proposal will be made up of 6 side entry wigwam cabins, 5 wigwam cabins, and then a disabled access cabin as well as the reception area and associated infrastructure located to the northwest of the site. Here are some just visualizations. If I move that off the way, I'm not sure if that's blocking your screen or not, but you can see here how they kind of integrate within the trees and the lakefront setting as well. And then just a visualization of what the cabins themselves actually look like, the provision of accommodation and the materials they're made out of as well. This is the reception area and site cabin for storage, etc. And then the access just located on Mill Road here with the bus stop just down here. If we just run through some photos just to get a better understanding of the site. So this is standing the other side of the access on Mill Road. Here where the corner is Cherry Tree is just this access here. The bus stop is located just to the left of the screen as well. Just past this corner, there's a terrace of houses down here as well. And I'll raise the consent they brought up later on as well. Here's the access running down here. I think Highways and their response have also requested that this be upgraded to surface so that none of the debris is brought onto the road as well. And then here's just looking to the north towards the junction of Market Road, etc. Here's standing inside the junction, so you can see the bus stop and you can see the visibility as well, which is provided both sides of the road there. And then while I'm on this side, I will just bring it up. There was a in the consultation responses, and I've had a few phone calls as well from neighbours, discussions about horses. There are 2 concerns here really that have been brought up, both people from the holiday park disturbing the horses, and also the fact that the currently the horse riders are allowed, or the owner has allowed the horse people to ride down the track, but there is now a gate both on this side and the other side of the farm, preventing them from doing it. It isn't actually a bridleway, and the farm has been split into 2 owners, I believe. So the farm and the horses are now owned by one person, and the fishing lakes are now owned by the applicant. So this is really within their right to do this, whether permission is granted in this instance or not. So just walking down the access track, you can see the screening between Mill Road on the right here. And then if we carry on walking, this is just looking back towards the access as well. Just walking, you can see the existing screening. Obviously this is winter and some of this would be more grown up with foliage. Walking down, carry on walking down. So this is that watercourse I brought up earlier, and we'll come discuss that later on as well. And then this is just looking north upstream of the watercourse. And then this is just walking down. This is where the access track kind of forks in 2. So the site office and the cabins that I was on about earlier will access from this way, and then you can turn right, and access the lakes down here as well. So this is just walking down the side. The existing track will be retained. Probably wasn't a good idea to take photos into the sun as well. But if we carry on walking down here, this is just the screening as well. So you can kind of see here that it's nice and screened. And then just, this is the lakes as well. So the wigwams will be set around this area on the higher ground out of the flood zone 2 and 3. This is looking towards the northern end of the site. So where that camper van is, my mouse is stuck, but where that camper van is, you can see that is where the site office will be, and then the wigwams will be located along the side here and then down here as well. It's just walking further down around the bottom of the lake as well. And then this is looking north. So you can see the cabins will be sat around the bank kind of here. And then this, where I'm stood at the moment, is actually outside of the application site. And then just more photos. You can see the high ground where the site office will be as well. And then this is that watercourse further down here as well. So this is up the top here, and you can see here how the elevation slopes. So you can see how this area of high ground is the flood zone 1 area, and then just back to the site plan here as well. If we move back to the committee report now and the consultation responses. So the site actually lies within both Borough Castle and Bradwell South, and both parish councils have responded in objection to the application, but their objections are the same, with concerns about the access to the site and the impacts on wildlife as well. However, they've said that if the application is approved, they'd like conditions added, especially vis-a-vis the bus stop. So in terms of the neighbour consultations, we've had 12 letters in objection, and those noted on page 25 of the committee report, and the concerns that they need to make the banks of the lake safe, will increase traffic on Mill Road, 12 cabins is excessive, risk about concerns to horses, which I raised earlier, increase in noise, proliferation of holiday camps in Borough Castle, impact on wildlife, no foot passing to the village, sewage is a problem in Borough Castle, moving of mobile homes, and disagreement with recent approvals. So those are the objections, but we've also had 10 letters in support of the application, mainly from local businesses saying how the proposal would be good for business and benefit businesses in the area. So if we move on to highways, they've got no objections to the proposal, but their conditions, what they've recommended, are at paragraph 2.3. Then if we move on to the county ecologists, they've raised comments about the discharge of foul water into that watercourse along here, which we'll come on to discuss later again, and the works of the lake. So the applicant has confirmed that no works are proposed to the banks of the lakes as well. So a water vol survey is not needed to cover this aspect as well. Natural England and the Arboricultural Officer have no objections to the proposal, although some replacement planting is proposed around this area just to compensate for where trees have to be removed to facilitate the siting of the wigwams. Environmental condition about a cycle hire scheme, and noted the package treatment plants re the foul sewage as well. But the information submitted in support of the application were really just more of a indicative kind of view of what could be done there. So if we move on to the policies to note probably are TR16, which is the stayed policy from the 2001 borough-wide local plan, CS2, CS8 and CS11 from the core strategy, as well as CS13 in terms of the flood risk. And then obviously members will be aware of the local plan part 2 being submitted for inspection, and that policies, emerging policies without objections to them, can afford significant weight. However, in this case, L2 and the other policies noted in the committee report do have outstanding objections against them, and therefore any limited weight can be given. If we move on to the assessment and the principle of the holiday accommodation in this location, although it is located outside the development limits and holiday areas in Borough Castle, as noted in 9.1 in your committee report, this is quite a small scale proposal you can see here. And this in this case is considered that it is appropriate considering the context of the wider area, and it is proportionate and therefore broadly compliant with policy CS2. To comply with TR16 that I mentioned earlier, I've recommended a occupancy period, I believe from the 31st of December to the 7th of February, where the wigwams wouldn't be occupied. Although I have had an email from the applicant's agent this morning asking if there could be a bit of leeway and maybe if that could be moved to the 4th of January. So it'll be up to members to decide if they're minded to approve whether that would be acceptable. So moving on further still, neighbours raised concerns about the highways issues up with the access up here, and there'd be an increase in traffic as a result of the proposal. Now, the fishing lakes will continue alongside the proposal, although the local highway, as mentioned before, has been consulted and raised no objection, and therefore in line with paragraph 109 from the NPPF, development should only be refused on highways grounds if the impact on the network would be severe, which in this case, it's not considered the impact would be severe. If we move on to ecology now, so because this is within, or because the proposal requires, or there's more, it triggers a bespoke HRA within the assessment. So one of those has been provided and the appropriate assessment is considered to be appropriate with the mitigation measures proposed and the HMMS payment of 880, which has been provided. But the ecological survey found that the proposal would result in the loss of improved or species poor grassland, which is not seen as being of significance. And there's no removal of large trees and no batteries seem to be affected. As the site is well used already by anglers, the proposal is not considered to be any more significant impact on the otters, which might possibly be in that lake there. If we move on to 9.7, the habitat report states that the site contains habitat that would appear suitable for water voles, although they are unlikely to be present near the swims due to wooden shuttering. It then goes on to say that if development is confined to the installation of the pods and improvement of the roadway, then no additional surveys would be presently required. However, a water vole survey would be required prior to the installation of the foul water pipe here, and this could be secured by a pre-commencement condition. We move on further still. So I mentioned horses earlier, and I think I've already covered all that needs to be said on that, if I'm honest. So if we move through the screening, and like I said earlier, it's situated within flood zone 1, so any risk is likely to be sufficiently mitigated there. The EA and the resilience officer have both been consulted on the application, raised no objections. The EA did request a condition ensuring that the cabins could be properly secured to the ground, and this can be done by ground screws, and this proposal would obviously not harm the trees and would comply with the condition requested by the Environment Agency. As well as this, they've provided a flood response plan to be made available to visitors in the event of a flood risk event, and that is also deemed to be acceptable by the resilience officer. So I think that really, to sum it up, if we move on to this now, the proposal is just for a small scale tourist accommodation, which is considered to be appropriate given the context of the area. It is considered to be acceptable subject to the appropriate conditions mentioned in the report and the presentation, and therefore it's recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rob. Are there any technical questions from any members, please, to the planning officer? I just indicate to Christina, please.
Councillor Myers.
Councillor Myers.
Yeah, just on the bridle way, just to the opposite, just some clarification on that. Obviously, it's the closure of the bridle way. I wasn't quite clear on the aspects of the ability to close it and stop horses from using that bridle way. And obviously, the bridle way keeps horses off of the main road in that area, so closing that might have an impact. So just some clarification about the closing of that bridle way.
Yeah, sure. So it's not actually a bridleway. I think there's just been like an informal agreement between because the farm was one farm and it's now been split into two. And my understanding is that there was an informal agreement with people that use the liveries that they were allowed to cut through the farm on their walks with their horses. And that has been, since the farm has been split up into two, I believe that it has been the owner of the fisheries has decided that that's not something they really want. So they've stopped access from their point of view there as well. But that's something that they'd be able to do regardless of this application or not, to be honest.
So it wasn't an actual official bridleway, it was just an agreement to use for the horses.
Yeah, that's right.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else, Christina, wish to speak? Ask a question?
Councillor
Yeah,
Wainwright, please.
I'll call you back when we finish, yeah?
Oh, right. Sorry, I thought Councillor Wainwright was indicating a wish to speak. I think he's just on the telephone.
Okay, anybody else wish to ask any technical questions, please?
I can't see anybody else, Chairman.
Okay, so at this point I call on Mr. Brian Swan, the chairman of Borough Castle Parish Council, to come forward, please.
Hello, Mr. Swan. You've got 3 minutes to speak to the committee. Thank you. And I'll let you know when there's 30 seconds remaining. Hello, Mr. Swan. Can you hear me? Hello, Mr. Swan. It's Christina.
Yeah, can you hear me
Yeah.
now?
Yes, I can hear you now, Mr.
Sorry
Swan.
about that.
You've got 3 minutes. No, that's perfectly okay. You've got 3 minutes to address the committee, Mr. Swan, and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. Good
Okay.
evening. There is a policy within this area that, in general, Belton should not join Bradwell. Now, as Borough Castle naturally joins Belton at Stepshort, surely this should apply. Here you're taking a field that is on the absolute outskirts of Borough Castle and bringing commercial activity closer to Belton, to Bradwell. This expands the holiday industry, which is already overpowering in Borough Castle. It's going into another field further away from the village. The development will have an adverse effect on wildlife in what is on the actual plot, a quieter area. The access is directly opposite Cherry Tree, which is a busy, and it is directly behind a bus stop. I know this has been discussed. It is directly behind a bus stop on what is a dangerous stretch of road. There have been numerous accidents on the bend towards Borough Castle and Belton. There is, as I said, the busy access opposite. There is the turns to Great Yarmouth, and any further traffic on that road is basically not suitable. There's a point in your notes that, taking this on, while I remember, that no gate should be put if the application is approved. Already since this application was submitted, some 2 metre high metal gates have appeared on the approach track. I don't know what permission is required for them, but they've certainly appeared since summer of 2020. In general, the Parish Council are against the application. There is also concern about the effect on wildlife on the site. I know there are only 12 units. I know it's used at fishing at present, but you're constructing 12 plus units with the accommodation, with the central buildings. They are, quotes, portable, but they are large portable buildings screwed down. They will have an effect. Anything has an effect on wildlife. I don't care what anybody says. That is basically my comments on this. I would ask that you really consider, does Borough Castle need to expand into another area? Does it need to expand towards Bradwell? Do we need more holiday trade in a parish that is already overpowered and overloaded? Please.
Thank you, Mr. Swan. You have 30 seconds left.
Thank you. Consider these points carefully along with the effect on traffic and the environment. And please go against your committee recommendation and refuse this application. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Swan. Are there any members got any questions for Mr. Swan, please? If they could just indicate to Christina, please.
I can't see any, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Swan, for your time and your input. Thank you. Thank you. I call on any ward councillors for that area, if they wish to speak regarding this application, to indicate to Christina, please.
Councillor Myers, Chairman.
Yeah, Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Chair. Will the site agent be speaking on this matter?
No, I don't
No,
believe so.
no.
Then in that case, I just want to raise just two concerns. One is that they're not going to do anything with regards to the banks around the lakes. Now, they're primarily for fishing and designed as such. And I do have concerns about young children who might be on the campsite running around. And I'm wondering what safety measures are going to be put into place to prevent possible endangerment of young children falling into the lakes around that area, because I haven't seen anything in the proposals because they said they're not going to put any banks up. So it's a pity I can't address that to the agent. And secondly, I think it's vital, given that the rain that happened the other week on that corner, the amount of water that was something like 3 foot deep on that bend is absolutely negated by any work that's done with displays and the road and the access and the water running off the fields into that area. And I'm sure that's going to be addressed, but you know, I just want to make sure that it is. So there's a safety issue and the water egress onto the road. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. There's no other ward councillors to speak. So we move to a committee debate and the decision. That's over to the councillors to decide to what they feel is the right thing. Councillor Wainwright.
Councillor Wainwright.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I think it's a really good application. I mean, it's just the thing we need. I mean, it's a commercial venture, but obviously local businesses will gain out of this. These type of pods are going up all over the country, basically. You know, with COVID, we need this type of accommodation to take place. You know, the highways issues, as long as they're addressed, which it says they will be. I mean, this thing about the safety issue, there's always a safety issue around water. And basically, there's a number of fishing lakes in the borough, some in Borough Castle, where you can, you know, pitch a tent overnight and take your kids. So this is not unique. You know, children and water don't mix particularly, but as I say, it's not a reason to turn it down. I mean, you know, I would hope that the parents taking their children were sensible, but as I say, parents take their kids fishing and they go in tents at the moment in certain fishing lakes. So as I say, I think it's a really good application and, you know, just the thing we need. And the Parish Council's objection that this is going to link Belton with Bradwell, but these are sort of pods, you know, where people can spend a week, do a bit of fishing, do a bit of, you know, it's not a house building exercise. We're not linking the villages up with houses with this. I think it's a great scheme, and I think we should have more things like this in the borough. The only thing I can't understand is why it's going to be closed for 5 weeks. I mean, people do go fishing and people do go on holiday in the winter. There's many places in the borough that don't close at all like this, but I'm quite happy with the recommendation as it is. But this environment thing about the bikes, I've never heard anything so ridiculous. I mean, it's like asking every business to put some bikes in. But obviously it can't be enforced, which is a good thing. But I'm fully in favour, so I'd move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Wainwright. Any other councillors wish to speak, please?
Councillor Myers.
Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Chair. The issue I raised about safety, sitting there fishing with your children is entirely different from having children on the site running around whilst parents might be cooking, preparing dinner and stuff like that. I don't object to the application per se. I don't think 12 pods is excessive. And, you know, I'm happy to see some form of alternative type of tourism in the area. But I still have not been given any information with regards to what safety measures are going to be taken into place. Camping and children running around whilst parents are cooking, preparing or whatever is not the same as sitting next to your child fishing. And I just wanted to know assurance of what type of safety aspects, lifeboats, whatever, are going to be in place, as they're not going to be putting any banks up to prevent egress into the water.
Can I just come back on that? There's many fishing lakes in the borough where people go and spend a week in a tent with their children fishing, and they're cooking and they're going to the loo, they're doing other things. So this is not unique. And we would just hope that the site operators, you know, put signage in place and whatever's necessary to make it safe. But it's not unique. You know, people go in tents for a week and go fishing with their kids. So it's, you know, it wouldn't appear to be a problem to me.
Just come back on that. I mean, people using the pods won't necessarily be going there to fish. That's the point I'm trying to make. Fishing is fine. People might go fishing for a whole week when they've got their children sat next to them. People going into the pods to go camping might not necessarily be going there for fishing. Might be an entirely different holiday experience.
That's your opinion.
Okay. Yeah. Anybody else wish to speak?
Councillor Williamson.
Yeah, Councillor Williamson.
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to check, Mr. Chairman, on the dates at which it will be closed, because I believe earlier in the report the officer did say the operator was asking from the 4th of January. Are we considering the 4th of January to February as a closure section?
Can you just clarify that, Rob, please?
Yeah, so it's up to the members whether they go with the recommendation date or whether they want to change that to what the agent suggests. I think the agent suggested that it be extended to the 4th of January and to the 31st of December to allow it to be open over the New Year's Eve period there.
Okay.
So it would be closed between the 4th of February till, the 4th of January till the date in February. That's the
Yeah,
closest
that's right.
closure
Yeah.
month. So. Thank you.
Okay then. Anybody else?
Councillor Flaxman Taylor.
Councillor Flaxman Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. My question is just following on from Councillor Williamson's. So are you saying that the agent has come back with an amendment so it will be closed just from the 31st of December to the 4th of January for 4 days? That's what they want?
No, it was from the 4th of January to the 7th of February.
So from the 4th to the 7th?
Yeah.
Right, okay, that's fine.
Okay. Anybody else?
I can't see any other hands raised, Chairman.
Okay. Councillor Wainwright
As
proposed.
proposed.
Have we a seconder for that, please?
I'll second that.
Is that Councillor Williamson? Yeah. Okay then. So at this point, Christina will do the roll call.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Annison.
4.
Councillor Bird. No. Councillor Fairhead. 4. Yep. Councillor Flaxman Taylor.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Freeman.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Lorne. Sorry, Councillor Lorne. Yep, thank you. Councillor Camden.
4.
Councillor Mogford. Councillor Mogford. I think I might have lost Councillor Mogford. Councillor Myers.
I'll abstain on this because of the safety issues.
Thank you. Councillor Wainwright.
4.
Councillor Williamson.
4.
Councillor B. Wright.
4.
Thank you. Councillor T. Wright.
4.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is carried.
Thank you, Christina. We move now to item number 5, which is the application for Westley West Road, West End Caister. I'd just like to say on the report, just read this out before we start, that this application was reported to the monitoring officer as an application submitted by a company in which a member is a director stroke shareholder in the applicant company. The monitoring officer has checked and made a record on file that she is satisfied that this has been processed normally and the member has taken no part in the council's processing of the application. Okay, so we now go to pages 39 to 52 of your agenda.
Chairman, before we start there are some councillors that wish to do a declaration of interest, please, starting with Councillor Flaxman-Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to obviously declare that I know the applicant.
Yep, that's fine.
Thank you.
I think, yeah, just being clear, I think, you know, obviously all the councillors do know Councillor Hammond. Councillor Camden, did you want to say anything as well?
That was, I match them same remarks, please.
Yes, I think that applies really to everybody on the committee, yeah? Okay then.
Right, thank you, Chair. I'll note that under the decks.
Yeah, so we go to pages 39 to 52 of your agenda, and that's with Rob Tate again. Rob, over to you. Thank you.
Right.
Excellent.
Chairman, could we just, Rob, could you just wait for 2 seconds, please? We're just trying to get another councillor on.
Oh, we've got councillor.
Yep.
Yeah, we've got Councillor Bird now and
Okay.
Councillor Mogford with us. So thank you. Sorry about that. We can carry on now.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay then, Rob, yeah.
Right,
Excellent,
and sorry, Chairman, Councillor Flaxman-Taylor and Councillor Mogford have got their hands raised. Do they wish to say anything, or is that from the previous application?
Sorry, that's a legacy hand, Christina.
Right, and Councillor Mogford?
Yes, I would like to declare an interest because I am a member of the Broads Authority. And
You're a member of the Broads
in the
Authority,
Broads executive area. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Mogford.
Yeah, thank you. That's everybody, yeah?
Yes, Chairman, sorry.
Okay then, Rob, over to you. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. I'll just close this PowerPoint and then allow me to open another one, hopefully. Sorry about this. There we go. I think we're there, aren't we? So this application is at Westerly, West Road, West End, West Caister, and it proposes the erection of a 4-bedroom detached dwelling on land adjacent to Westerly. As stated in the report, and as the chairman said, this application has been submitted by a company of which a member is a director/shareholder of, and the monitoring officer has checked the file and is satisfied that the application has been processed normally. If we move on to the PowerPoint, here we can see the site outlined in red. I'll just get up this so you can see it a bit clearer. So it comprises of 0.45 hectares and is currently open paddock to the north of the donor dwelling here. We can also see the position of the dwelling that was recently approved back last summer as part of application 06200125F. So this slide here just shows you the position again of the proposed dwelling, detached garage, room for parking that would share the access and branch off the existing access for Westerly and the recent approval there. So this shows Westerly here. Also shows the proximity to the Broads Authority executive area to the north, and the site does abut this part here as well. And then there's the Broads Authority area is near here to the access as well. A public footpath runs along to the side of the site, and we'll see in some photos later, it is quite well screened as well. Members will be well aware of the planning history on this site, but if we just rewind briefly, there was back last February a proposal for a dwelling on this plot of land was refused, with the main concerns being the design of the dwelling, the proximity to the Broads area and the intrusion to the countryside, and concerns about water vols as well, to that drainage which we'll come and talk about later on as well. This is just the site plan of the application that was refused, showing it in a similar or almost identical position to this current application. And then this application was approved later on as 0125, as I mentioned earlier. And this is a more of a natural infill position between the donor dwelling and then the development along West Road as well. This proposal is significantly smaller than the one that was refused last February, although concerns about the alien intrusion into the countryside and the proximity to the Broadswell area still remain, as well as it being out of character by virtue of its setback position, which we saw earlier, and the backland form of development. Here we can see the floor plan showing open plan, kitchen, diner, lounge, bedrooms upstairs as well. And then the elevations here as well, showing how much smaller it is than the previous application. If we just look at this view, this is just, the access is just here. It's just looking up the road. And you can see the development is linear to this part as well, which you can see on a map later on in the presentation. This shows you where the dwelling would be. And you can see from this view quite clearly how the view to the open landscape beyond would be lost. And you can see the location on this slide of the approval as well. So obviously you can see it's not so intrusive. If we move along, this is that drainage ditch, which I mentioned earlier. There was concerns in the application that was refused last February. So there were potential for water voles in the locality, and that the foul water, which would use the existing treatment plant as westerly, would discharge into here. And then there was concern that this ditch connected into the wider network of ditch where water voles were known to be present. However, it was confirmed that this ditch, although I went on a particularly wet period of time, and you can see here quite clearly that there's not really a lot of water in the bottom of here, and it really acts as more of a soak away dry ditch kind of thing than as part of the wider network. As I mentioned earlier, the foul water in this proposal will be treated in the same way as the recent approval, 125F, and the existing dwelling at Westerly. And the report provided as part of this application allay the previous concerns about the water voles, and therefore we're satisfied that there'd be no impact on water voles. You can also see here the screening between the footpath and the site itself. It is quite well established, but you can obviously see here's Westerly. You can see that it's not completely screened, and there would be a noticeable intrusion into the countryside from this footpath, this dotted purple line here. If we move back to the report and the consultation responses, we've had no objections from parishes or neighbours or the arboricultural officer, and Highways and Environmental Health have no objections subject to conditions being implemented on any approval should members be minded to go against the committee recommendation. If we then move on to the Broads Authority's response, obviously we can see where the application site would join up to the red line here, and the Broads have objected with concerns about intrusion into the open countryside. As you can see from the drive, it would be set significantly further back than the existing development along the road. And they're also concerned about the urbanising impact that this would have in combination with the existing dwelling and intruding the development back as well. The county ecologist in her response raised notes about the water voles, which I discussed earlier, and also discusses the mitigation enhancement and conditions, which are at paragraph 2.7, which were provided as part of the ecological report submitted as part of the application. If we run through the policies and onto the main consideration, we get to paragraph 9.1, where we discuss the main principle of the development. So West Caistor is a tertiary village, and it has no development limits. And what is most notable about the settlement is that it's characteristically linear in form, which we, like I mentioned, we can see on the slide, both to the south of the road and to the north of the road as well here. The backland form of development with limited road frontage would be contrary to this character and the existing pattern of development. And as mentioned before in 0620-0125F, which overcame these concerns by bringing it forward into this more logical infill plot here as well. It is also worth noting here that as of December the 18th, 2020, the council now enjoys a housing land supply of 6.51 years, and the tilted balance would no longer apply. So more weight can be given to the development policies. For example, in the report CSO1E, which is in relation to pedestrian access to local amenities. And as we can see from that slide here on the road, there's no lit footpath provision into any services or amenities or anything like that at this site. So we've covered the intrusion into the countryside before and the objection from the Broads. And then at 9.16, we already get into repeating concerns from the first application, and then the alternative provision which was suggested and obviously granted permission as part of that application I mentioned. If we move on to the conclusion now, the concerns from the application which was refused in 2020, or in February 2020, I should say, have not been overcome, particularly in respect to being out of character with the form of the existing settlement and the intrusion into the countryside. And it's for these reasons that the application is therefore recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rob. Are there any technical questions from members to ask the planning manager, please? Just indicate to Christina, please.
Councillor Williamson.
Yes, may I ask, Rob, has the permission which was given to the house on the infill plot, has that building already started?
Yes, so I went out just before Christmas and it had started, yes.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any technical questions, please?
I can't see any other hands, Chair.
Okay,
Oh, sorry, Councillor
sorry?
Wainwright, sorry.
No, Mr.
Councillor
Chairman,
Wainwright?
Sorry, I missed. Could you just clarify what Councillor Williams just said? The development has already started. Is that what you're saying?
Councillor Williamson, yeah, that was one near there.
No, I'm talking about the infill plot
Yeah,
which was given
Oh,
permission
right. Okay.
yeah.
last year.
Oh,
To the right-hand side, to the south, to the easterly direction away from Westleigh. I'm not talking about the new application. So they've
Oh,
got
right,
two
okay.
houses
Yeah.
on the concrete wall.
thank you for that.
Okay. Yeah, is there any other questions?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Just here's a question I'd like to ask Rob.
Yeah.
When the Broads Authority objects, obviously outside, with the scale design and use of materials which are not sympathetic, what would be sympathetic?
I think from their point of view, their objections were quite similar to the first application. I mean, in terms of the materials proposed, I think it is just brickwork and pan tile, so it's nothing too controversial from that point of view. I don't know if Dean wants to add anything on that point there.
I think wattle and daub and straw would be apt for them.
Do you want to come in there, Dean?
No, I think Councillor Mopford has probably said what I would say.
What, straw? Straw.
No, what I would say is that obviously what they looked for was sort of more traditional sort of palette of materials around there, and really what you'd be looking at, I'd have thought, would be sort of pan tiles and soft red bricks as such. So I don't think the actual sort of materials are put forward here are a million miles away from really that type of material.
Okay, thanks. Any other technical questions for Rob?
I can't see any more hands raised, Chair.
Okay, Christina. So at this point, I call on any ward councillors who wish to come forward and speak. I don't think there is.
No, Chairman.
Okay, then. So we move to the committee debate and the decision. That's over to the councillors what they decide. Nobody wish to say anything?
Can't see anyone indicating as such at the moment, Chair. Councillor Williamson now.
So I think we're back exactly, Mr. Chairman, where we were with the original application on exactly the same conditions. In my view, it hasn't changed one single issue as far as we're concerned with the intrusion into the Broadland scene and into the open space. And I thought the solution was, and what I'm a bit disappointed about, we came to give the permission for the house which is to the east of the Dilda house. I thought that was the solution which was agreed upon. This seems to be just going back to the original thing. I couldn't support it because of that reason. It's intrusion into the open space again. It's up against the Broadland boundary, against the tree line, against the northern boundary. It's unacceptable in my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Williamson. Anybody else wish to speak?
Councillor Lorne.
Councillor Lorne?
Yes. One thing mentioned was spoiling of the view. Well, of course, we all know you're not entitled to the view unless you're being overlooked by somebody. But realistically, once Broadland, the Broads Authority, start saying they don't want it, they seem to be law unto themselves. Broads Authority, if they say no, even though it's not on their land or near, they say, if they say no, nobody seems to argue with the Broads Authority. Are they autonomous in deciding everything, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Minns, can you come in on that? That question is brought up quite often with some applications.
It is, but obviously what you have to look at, this is an application which is within the Borough Council's area there, but you do need to take into account, being the sort of the almost sort of national park status that the Broads Authority have, any impact that actually would have upon those areas when you are making a decision in close proximity to the Broads executive area. But
Okay.
ultimately, it's still the Borough Council's gift to make a decision on the application.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Anybody else wish to come in?
Councillor Tony Wright.
Yes, I think what Councillor Williams has already said, that we went through exactly the same arguments just nearly 12 months ago, and I don't think anything has changed from that point of view. And I think to answer Councillor Lawn's question in regards to that, my view is that we ask all sorts of consultees for their opinions, and it is for us to decide whether or not we agree with them. In this particular case, with the Broads Authority declaring that it's an executive area, and I think 10.2 sums up, and it says quite clearly which is to be afforded the highest level of protection. And on that basis, I don't think that we've got any other option but to support the officer's recommendation to refuse this, as we did last year, for exactly the same reasons and arguments as we used nearly 12 months ago.
Okay, Councillor Wright. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else?
Councillor Williamson.
Sorry, Chair, I'm just going back.
Yep. Yep.
Regards to Tony Wright's probably answered, Councillor Wright probably answered what I was going to say, but I think there's pertinent to take on board the consultees' opinions, certainly when it's to do with the national park status consultee, which is very, very important, not something to be dismissed as losing a view. It's not about losing a view, it's about losing the character of the landscape in that area. If this one's given permission, there's no reason, in my opinion, why you couldn't fill the whole of the acreage behind Westerly with houses, because that's what you're basically approving. This is the reason it was refused the first time, to bring it in line with the building line, with the string of houses on either side of the road, the development, natural development. But this would be most unnatural development, taking right up against the boundary of a national park. I think that is important.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Williamson. Yes. Anybody else wish to speak?
Councillor Candon.
Councillor Candon?
Thank you, Chair. A couple of fellow councillors have already mentioned about the protection status, but I must admit I do have my own sort of personal views of the Broads Authority that maybe match Councillor Lawn's, but my job is to go by the evidence in front of me in planning, and I am well aware of the protection status the Broads Authority gives on the equivalent level of national park status. So for that reason, unfortunately, I agree. I cannot back this proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Candon. Anybody else, please?
I can't see any further hands, Chair.
Okay, then, Christine. Sorry?
I move the recommendation.
Okay, so the recommendation is to refuse, and we have a proposer, which is Councillor Williamson. Have we a seconder as well, please? Have we a seconder, please?
Councillor Candon is indicating.
Yeah, so just make clear, we are voting to refuse the application. At this point, Christina will do the roll call.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to make it clear that we are voting to refuse the application. Councillor Annison.
For.
Councillor Bird.
Against.
Councillor Fairhead? 4. Councillor Flaxman-Taylor?
4.
Councillor Freeman?
4.
Councillor Lorne?
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Candon?
Against.
Against.
Councillor Mogford?
I support the recommendation.
Councillor Myers?
For the recommendation.
Councillor Wainwright? Sorry, Councillor Wainwright, you're muted.
For the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Wainwright. Councillor Williamson?
For.
Councillor B. Wright?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Tony Wright?
For the recommendation.
Thank you.
Could I just ask, Mr. Chairman? Could I just, for clarification, Councillor Candon seconded it, and then he voted against it.
Now,
So what's all that about?
What that is about is Councillor Wainwright is a genuine mistake there. I was voting actually on what I would like done with the application rather than on the recommendation. So I do apologise. My vote was supposed to be for the recommendation but against approval.
For the recommendation but against approval?
No, that's what he's saying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I said, Trevor.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Can I just ask the monitoring officer just to come in to just clarify that for me, please, before we move on? What Councillor? Sorry, could I? Yeah.
I think that given that Councillor Candon had clearly indicated during the debate his intention, I think it can be recognised as a mistake, but I wouldn't make a habit of allowing members to correct or change their votes in that way. And it's only because Councillor Candon's intention was made clear in debate, and he seconded the motion. So.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The application is refused.
Thank you, Christina. So at this point, we move to item number 6, which is the application land adjacent to Folly Cottages Court, Rollesby Road. At this point, Councillor Lorne, I think you leave.
Yes, I am leaving.
Thank you,
And
Councillor Lorne.
Nice time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll turn off and I'll go away.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye.
We'll just have to hold fast, Chairman, until Councillor Lorne has left the meeting. If you can
Yes,
just,
okay.
Yep. Right, Councillor Lorne has left, so we're good to go. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Christina. So yeah, again, I invite Rob Tate, the planning officer, for the application on pages 53 to 65 of your agenda.
Right.
And,
sorry, Chairman. Councillor
yes?
Mogford's got his hand raised before we start.
Yes, sorry, I have an interest. I'm a member of the Broads Authority. I'm also the local member. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Over to you, Rob.
Excellent. Thank you, Chair. I'll just
Thank
get
you.
my
Yep.
PowerPoint up again. Okay, so this site comprises 0.2 hectares outlined in red here on the screen and proposes the erection of a 4-bedroom detached chalet style bungalow with a detached garage. As stated in the report, the applicant is a close family member of Councillor Lorne. The monitoring officer has checked and is satisfied that the application has been processed normally. Before you get going really with this application, I think it's worth understanding the context and the history of the site, which is detailed at paragraphs 1.3 and 1.4 in your report. But here we can see the site has an extant permission, which was approved in July 2019, and we can see what actually has approval now on the site. So this is the front on Rollesby Road, or Court Road, beg my pardon, and here's the dwelling with the garage, and you can see the scale of the proposal here. So this is what has approval at the moment. If we move on to this one, this is the application 0619-0702F, which was refused under delegated powers in April of 2020. And you can see here how the proposal increased in size The extant permission has a gross floor area of 130 square metres. This proposal increased it to 205 square metres. And not only that, but it was set then significantly further back on the plot behind the, I believe it's a telephone cable, but it might be a power line. And then we can then see here on the screen where the impact, or where the Broads area is. And the concern on the previous application was by setting it further back on the plot, that it would then have an adverse impact on the Broads area here. So this is the proposal as it stands for this application. It's a more appropriate scale, and as you can see on the slide and the next, it reverts back into a position more in keeping with the area and in line with the neighbouring plots. The design is non-offensive, and the gross floor area is now 153 square metres. So it's an increase over the previous one, but it's significantly smaller than the last one. I will note here that there are Velux windows on the side, which I will bring up when I talk about the consultation responses, but I will just note on the one that has an approval, there are also Velux windows on the side elevations as well. So these are the floor plans. You can see 2 bedrooms on the ground floor, open space, open plan, kitchen, dining, living room, and then bedrooms on the first floor as well. And here we can see where it is situated on the plot as well. So I'll come on to discuss foul drainage later on, but here is the position of the septic tank, a purifying septic tank, I should just say, and it is located approximately 57 metres away from the watercourse, which we'll come on and talk about a bit later on. If we go on to move on to some photos of the site here as well, the 2 oak trees to the front, this one and this one, either side of the access, benefit from a TPO, but on the, which is number 9 of 2019, but the extant permission, there are no conditions to protect these trees, and therefore, as we'll discuss later on, even though the arboricultural officer objects to this application, if this application is refused, there is still an extant permission as the fallback position without any protection measures, although I believe the TPO was implemented after the permission was granted there. If we move back, so this is just the second tree there as well. If we move on to some photos of the site, you can see there's a static caravan there, and you can get a feel for the general shape and size of the plot here as well. And then you can see the pattern of development existing on the southern side of the road here, and the narrowness of Court Road as well. And then this is just a view the other way, looking towards the main village as well. And then this is just set back further. So you can see those 2 oak trees here in between, and you can see the width of the road and the cars parked on the side here as well. And then just some more photos of the site, a bit closer. This is a neighbouring property, and then just further down as well, and then just looking towards the other side, and then just a Google view as well. If we move back to the committee report and the consultation responses at point 2.1 in your committee report on page 54, the Parish Council objects to the application, saying that it's out of character, outside the development limits, and located off a single track road. There have been 3 objections received from neighbours, which is summarised on 2.2 your committee report, but I will just run through them. It's the bathroom windows should be obscure glazed only. 3 windows to the side at ground floor are unnecessary and invasion of privacy, overlooking due to the Velux windows in the bedroom. Planting in hedgerows. Design is an improvement over the previous applications. Contaminated land doesn't enhance biodiversity, the character of the area. Larger than the approved dwelling. Surface water would run into the drainage ditch, which then flows into the Trinity Broads, and that there should be no building works at weekends or evenings. So you can see that Highways haven't objected to the application, subject to conditions at 2.3, and the Broads Authority doesn't have any comments to make on this application. If we move to 2.5 and the arboricultural officer, this is where he objects to the application due to the high value of these trees on the entrance of the site and the need for them to be protected during the development process. And even though in this comments he says that he cannot see how it's possible due to their site location, obviously we've got to be aware in this case of the fallback position of the extant permission, which doesn't have any conditions related to root protection areas or that kind of thing, which is something that we could condition on this permission. So members be in mind to go along with the recommendation. So NETI has no objections, but just seeks clarification on a few issues, including the position of the purifying septic tank, which I did mention briefly earlier. If we run through the policies here, so you'll note that obviously paragraph 11 from the NPPF isn't listed in the policies anymore. And that is, as I mentioned in the previous report, we can now demonstrate a housing land supply of 6.51 years. So the tiltward balance no longer applies there. So the site is outside the development limit. And as I just mentioned, we can now demonstrate a housing land supply of 6.15 years, and therefore more weight can be attributed to the development policies and the development limits. However, the principle of development on this site has already been established by virtue of that existing permission on the site granted in 2019. And therefore the key considerations in this instance are the impacts on the neighbours and any ecological concerns there as well. In terms of overlooking, I did just mention those windows earlier. With the ground floor windows here to the side, you can, it isn't really considered there'd be any unacceptable levels of overlooking by virtue of the fact they're on the ground floor. And also we can I think it's in the committee report about conditioning a landscaping scheme as well. And as I mentioned earlier, the Velux windows at the top here, the extant permission has Velux windows up there. So it's really a matter of, is this a significant increase in the unacceptable levels of overlooking? And in this case, it's not considered that it would be. In terms of surface water, this would be disposed of by a soakaway, which is relatively common, isn't it? And then if we move on to the foul water, this will be disposed of via a purifying septic tank, package treatment plant, which will be located 50 plus meters away from the ditch. And I think on this last slide, you can see where that ditch is. Maybe it's on the first slide. Yeah, so this is that ditch that I'm talking about here. The application site is within 400 meters of a designated site, and therefore a bespoke habitats regulation assessment has been provided, and that is deemed acceptable. And then if we really just move on to the conclusion here, I think on balance, when considering the above, the application is considered to be acceptable, subject to those conditions I mentioned earlier, and therefore, Chair, it is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Any technical questions from members, please, if they could indicate to Christina?
Councillor Wainwright.
Yeah, can you just clarify, Rob? Obviously, the trees were a concern for the our officer, but obviously the application that was passed in February 19 didn't take account of those trees because the TPO was put on afterwards. So obviously they've got the fallback position, as you said. But if we were to pass this application, did you say we could condition that those trees were protected, or they, you know, how would you phrase that?
Yeah, so there are mitigation measures and plans we can condition, such as root protection areas and those kind of things that can ensure that when development can take place, that there's a scheme agreed with the arboricultural officer that can ensure that those trees and those roots there are protected in this case.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that's vital that we do that. Anybody else?
Councillor Tony Wright.
Just further to that particular point, the tree officer or arboriculturist says that they can't see how that can happen. Perhaps the officer can just explain, will this actually stop the development, or would that, in his position, be able to say whether that would happen or not?
I mean, from that standpoint, if there couldn't be if we were to approve this and condition that, and the plan that they come up with isn't acceptable to the tree officer, then that would prevent this from going ahead there in that case.
Okay.
Fine, thank you.
Anybody else, please?
I can't see anybody else, Chairman.
Okay, Christina, thank you. So at this point, I invite Mr. David Parsons, an objector, to come forward, please. Mr. Parsons.
Hello, Mr. Parsons, it's Christina. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, certainly, Mr. Parsons. You've got 3 minutes and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
As you said previously, the application shows the site to be outside of the specified limits from the Rollesby plan, and we feel it does have an adverse effect on our property as the buildings are increased in size and out of keeping with the environment. Doesn't enhance any character and biodiversity of the immediate landscape and area for what is a small isolated hamlet. There have been previous applications on here, all refused by the committee. So why now consider an unnatural larger development? The Rollesby plan also proposes development of smaller houses with fewer bedrooms on areas of infill, not on vacant agricultural land, which is what we see here. It's a strategically environmentally important area. I can tell you that that site has been used as a dump previously, and I believe there's a little bit of debris bulldozed in there, some of which could be chemicals. I reported it to the Broads Authority, and it hasn't been referred to in the current application, and the risk of contamination is given as none, which is a bit surprising. So a risk of pollutant reaching into the lower watercourse and onto the adjacent Trinity Broads, I think, is very real. And I do think any additional development upsetting the land, despite proposed mitigation factors, could be awkward. There's no reference to soil type or condition in the ecology report, and so there's no risk assessment against pollution. There's been lots of flooding here recently. It's the lowest point of the area. You saw it on those photographs. It's actually much more worse than that. The natural drainage ditch has been compromised with the design. I don't quite see how on that plan you can take water away from that site and bring it into that ditch on the western side, because that's crossing people's property. I think the only other thing I'd really probably like to say is that you've mentioned that it's a narrow banked single track remote rural road, limited passing places. I think just the development here is just unrealistic. I'm aware that a recent application in Wick Lane just down the road was refused on similar grounds. And so I think personally, the application shouldn't be granted due to site unsuitability. I would like to say, however, should you go ahead and grant it, as you were talking about earlier, we would be looking for working hours to be restricted, any future development rights to definitely be removed, and definitely robust protection against those oak trees being damaged. Some damage has already occurred to them in some of this preparatory work. So I think that's about it, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Any councillors got any questions for Mr. Parsons?
Councillor Wright, Councillor Tony Wright.
Yes,
Just
Councillor
very quickly, you do mention in your submission that there is a neighbourhood plan. How far has that progressed?
As far as I'm aware, that's the 2020-2035 Rollesby plan, and that does definitely indicate that this application would be, should be opposed. It's non-strategic. It doesn't suit the current plan for Rollesby. All I can tell you is obviously people have obviously taken advice from locally in Rollesby Parish Council, and yes, that's the latest I've heard.
Perhaps I can just forward that to Rob then, or to Dean perhaps. How far has the neighbourhood plan actually progressed?
My understanding at the moment is that the plans have been submitted. There's been a couple of plans which have sort of recently been submitted, and Rollesby is one of those. But at the present time, we can't go through all the regulations as required by the Neighbourhood Planning Act there, which is i.e. to put these applications on deposit at the present time and have to be available physical copies to the public. So because of COVID, that's not moving forward at the present time.
I do understand that, but what my concern is, I've had a bit of experience with neighbourhood plans, and my understanding is I know that previous Secretary of State have ruled that neighbourhood plans that have progressed to a certain level would actually have precedence over planning applications. That's why I'm asking how far this has got. Is it got to the stage where it's being submitted as a plan, or has it gone as a draft plan looking for alterations?
It hasn't actually reached the deposit stage whereby you can actually then sort of put it out to actually get the local residents sort of feedback on that. Now, I think that the point you have to sort of go fall back on this again, although this is a new application there, really what you have to look at is what is different in this particular application to the one that's already been approved. And I know as Mr. Parsons sort of said that we've refused applications, all the applications previously on this site, but as Rob said in his report and his presentation there on page 53 at paragraph 1.3, we already do have an approval actually on the site. So the principle of development has already been approved. And from that point of view, you need to take that into account when you're determining this particular planning application.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is this a question for Mr. Parsons, Councillor Myers?
Yes, it is, Chair. Thank
Okay,
you.
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Mr. Parsons mentioned sort of flooding in the area. Bearing in mind, if plans are correct, that there's bedrooms on the ground floor. So how significant is it, the flooding of that? I mean, does it flood and then drain away? Is it a foot flood? Is it significant flooding, especially with bedrooms on the ground floor?
I would say if the actual point of the site entrance, and I'm the immediate neighbour, and we are the lowest point of the road. If you probably saw on those photographs, and that was a good day, that there's considerable amount of water on that road, and the ditch between us is the natural takeaway of the water in the road. How it would affect the site, I can't really say, but it's a quagmire at the moment. You probably just be welcome to have a look. I just think any further sort of development would definitely cause serious issues. It is a wet area. We're effectively below ground level, below sea level here, bottom of the the only hill in Rollesby, and yeah, it is quite damp.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else got any questions for Mr. Parsons?
Councillor Mogford, Chairman.
Councillor Mogford.
Just to say that the neighbourhood plan, in fact, went through the Broads Authority last Friday, passed it with no problems. Right. So that they've approved it. So I think it's gone back now to GYBC. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Parsons, please?
Can't see any more hands raised, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Parsons, for your time and input. Thank you.
Thank
you. So I now invite Mr. Sean Day, Rollesby Parish Council representative. Mr. Day.
Hello, Mr. Day. It's Christina. Can you hear me? Mr. Day? Hello, Mr. Day. Can you hear me? Chairman, we appear to have lost Mr. Day. He's there, but Mr. Day, can you unmute yourself? Chairman, if you can just bear with us, we're just trying to see if we can get hold of Mr. Day.
Yes, no problem.
Apologies. I'll just mute myself. Chairman, we are in contact with Mr. Day using the chat bar, so we'll just see if we can get him on. If you can just bear with us for a few more seconds. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine.
No, we can't get him by the chat bar. We're just going to give him a quick telephone call.
Okay.
Yeah, apologies. He's been with us for all of the meeting, and then as soon as we needed to speak to him, we've lost him, unfortunately.
That's okay, no problem.
Thank you, Chair.
I'll just be a minute or so. They're just talking to the gentleman at the moment.
So if I've asked you to unmute
Chairman,
now,
we're just
can you-
talking Mr. Day through the procedure.
Can
Yeah, no problem.
Chairman, Mr. Day is just having to log in once again.
Yeah, that's fine. No problem.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if I could just take a moment to clarify with
Yes.
Dean Minns whether, so Great Yarmouth has not had the Regulation 16 submission of this neighbourhood plan that's being referred to.
Dean?
We've had it submitted, but we've taken legal advice in terms of how we stand at the present time in terms of the legislation of what we have to do next in terms of it going sort of, as I said, sort of deposited and open to public scrutiny further than that. And apparently the COVID legislation hasn't actually been changed to address that information, that particular part.
So that you're not able to make a judgment. I think this may be what you were saying, that you're not able to make a judgment about the level of resolved objections. Is that
That's correct. Yeah. So the
so I think it would then be described as a limit, because we're effectively at the draft plan stage. So it would fall into the category of limited weight.
It would be, yeah.
Concur on that. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll just give it another moment just for this gentleman. He's still trying to get on.
hang on, let me
Hello.
allow you to talk.
Hello, Mr. Day. Can you hear me? It's Christina. No, I can't hear you. Sorry, Mr. Day.
No.
Okay.
Hang on 2 seconds. Yeah, let me make a note of them. Yeah, that's fine. Hang on, let me make a note of them, and then I will ask our chairman just to. Hang on 2 seconds. Yeah, carry on.
Chairman, Mr. Day has asked that if he relays his objections to us, whether then we can relay it to you, because he can hear us, but we can't hear him.
Yes, that would be fine under the circumstances.
Okay, all right then.
Yeah.
If you can just bear with us for another few
Yes.
moments, and we'll
Yep.
write them down, and then I'll report them to you
Yeah.
on his behalf.
That's
Thank
fine,
you, Chairman.
Christine. Yeah, no problem.
Could I come in here, Chairman, as well, also about the sort of the flooding status of the plot, because we've just been checking the Environment Agency sort of areas at risk of flooding there, and this particular where this is actually located on the plot is actually in flood zone 1, which is the lowest risk of flooding. further back in the site, then you sort of move to sort of flood zone 2 in there, but this doesn't actually sit within that particular area.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Dean. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. That's most helpful.
Chairman, Councillor Mogford has his hand raised.
Councillor Mogford?
Yes, Chairman. I was at the Parish Council meeting when this was debated by the Parish Council, so I'm quite familiar with what the problems are. And if Mr. Day cannot get through, I'll be quite happy to make what I think are the comments of the Parish Council, although I don't necessarily agree with them.
Okay, I'll just let Christina just get those written down and read them direct from the gentleman there.
Chairman, they're now coming through to you, the written comments from the Parish Council. Right.
Okay, yeah, Christina, yeah. Sorry about the delay, but I'd just like to hear the Parish Council's views.
Right, Chairman, the comments are with reference to the neighbourhood plan, the Parish Council were informed by Brandon Lewis that once it was submitted, it would be taken into account. And also there were no tree preservation orders on the trees when the application went in for planning. The tree preservation orders were only applied for once the planning had been approved. And in the original plan, the conditions were that no trees were to be removed.
Okay, Christina, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Day. If you can still hear me, thank you. Just a shame you couldn't be on, but I hope we've done the correct thing and passed on your views. Are there any ward councillors who wish to speak on this application, please? If that indicate to Christina, please.
Councillor Mogford still has his hand raised, Chairman, yes. Whether he's a parish councillor.
No, I'm the district councillor. I'm the district councillor.
You're the district councillor.
I'm sorry.
Apologies, Councillor Mogford.
That's all right. That's quite all right. The parish felt that the parish council felt quite strongly that the road was very narrow and that it could give problems if this building went ahead. On the other side, you've got to say, well, the site already had a planning permission on it, so one probably outweighs the other. But I must make the point that the parish council felt strongly that the road was too narrow. And there was also a strong feeling that the development was quite out of character with the area. You've already heard about the neighbourhood plan. They were the main problems that the parish council had, Chairman, and I feel I ought to report, in the absence of Mr. Day, I ought to report the strong feeling that the parish council had. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mogford. So at this point, we go to into debate. What I'd like to say is that obviously I'd like to see a restriction of working hours if this is approved this evening, and definitely conditions put on those trees so they can't be touched, and obviously the roots. That's over to the committee.
Councillor Mogford is indicating.
Councillor Mogford.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's quite pertinent that there's no comment in from the Broads Authority on this. I mean, they're usually very keen to comment on building applications in their territory, and they haven't commented upon this at all. So they're obviously quite happy with it. I would assume their silence means happiness. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Anybody else?
Councillor Wright, Chairman.
Councillor
So,
Wright.
I just want to pursue this position regarding the neighbourhood plan. What I can understand is that the officers are saying quite clearly that the status of the neighbourhood plan at the moment will have no impact or bearing on this particular application, whereas we heard the parish council saying that according to our MP, this does. Now, are the officers quite clear that this is not going to have an impact on the decision of this committee, that we can't take this into account?
Caroline?
Yes, we haven't said that it's no weight. The interchange that I just had with Dean there established that it's at the limited weight stage, because although it has been submitted due to COVID, we're not at the equivalent of a post 6-week post consultation stage, which would move the plan to the next level of limited to moderate weights. So Dean has said that because we've been unable to resolve whether the extent of resolved objections, because we haven't been able to consult publicly because of COVID, it's not at that limited to moderate stage. It remains at the status of limited weight to be given. So it's not no weight, but it's very limited. It's very early stage.
So, Caroline, if you just stay on. So if it was to be moved that we don't agree to the plan application, and with the reason being the neighbourhood plan supersedes this, would that be right or would that be wrong?
It wouldn't be sufficient, because you would need more than that. It could be one of several reasons that you might give, but it wouldn't, in my view, it wouldn't be sufficient allow you to rest your decision. It's worth a mention, but you need more than that to justify your decision.
Okay, Councillor Wright.
Well, yeah, that's just a pity, really, because I do believe in these neighbourhood plans giving power down to the local communities, but thus far I've not seen them being able to work in the favour of community decisions. Because if the Rollesby Council have gone out to this trouble to develop a neighbourhood plan, which takes an awful lot of time to develop, and then right at the end of this particular process, we go against it on the basis that we're agreeing to a plan application which is not within the neighbourhood plan. It just seems to be a bit of a shame. But so I'm really disappointed that that's not going to carry that much weight in this particular guise.
Okay, Councillor Wright. Anybody else wish to speak?
Councillor Williamson, Chairman.
Councillor Williamson.
Thanks, Chairman. I think as long as we have the conditions which are currently there regarding the trees being protected, the roots during the living purpose, also the hours of operation and the construction, and the purifying and simple waste of the water which is going into the diet which goes onto the tree because is of higher, better quality, then I would support the recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Williams. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Williamson. Anybody else wish to speak?
No more hands raised, Chairman.
Okay, Christina. So we have a proposer, Councillor Williamson, to approve the recommendation subject to conditions. Have we got a seconder for that, please?
I second that with the conditions.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, we'll hand over to Christina to do the roll call. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Annison.
For.
Councillor Bird.
Sorry, yes, 4.
Thank you, Councillor Bird. Councillor Fairhead. 4. Thank you. Councillor Flaxman Taylor.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Freeman.
4.
Councillor Candon.
4.
Councillor Mogford.
4, subject to all the conditions that.
Thank you, Councillor Mogford. Councillor Myers.
4.
Councillor Wainwright. Sorry, Councillor Wainwright.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Williamson.
4.
Councillor B. Wright.
4 with the conditions.
Thank you. Councillor T. Wright.
against, really, on the basis of the neighbourhood plan.
Thank you, councillor Wright. Chairman, that's approved, subject to the conditions.
Thank you, Christina. So we move to item number 7, which is the delegated decisions made by planning officers and the DC committee between the 1st and the 31st of December 2020. And
If there's no comments on this, Chairman, it can be noted on assent.
yeah, everybody happy with that? Yeah. And we just moved to item number 8. There is no other business, so I'd like to say thank you for everyone.
Sorry, Chairman, could I just come in there a moment? Could I just come in there quickly there?
Yes,
Just
Dean.
to say that as from Monday this week, we've got a new development control manager who started with the council, Rob Parkinson. So he'll be sort of dealing with overseeing the planning applications team there. So Rob has been listening to here today, but certainly over the coming weeks, hopefully members will then sort of get introduced to him along the way. And but if, you know, obviously if there's any questions about anything in development as well, by all means contact Rob Parkinson. His address is actually email address and telephone numbers are on the internal sort of phone system now. Okay, thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Dane.
Chairman, may I just interject a moment? I've had some residents been on to me in regard to the Pontin site at
Councillor Bird.
Hemsby. Can I just ask that our planning keeping a careful watch on their development? Mr. Chairman, can I ask that this British crowd of it thing is taken down?
Yeah.
We're not supposed to have these type of things in the background.
Councillor Bird, can we discuss that? Can we discuss that at the end of the meeting? We're still on live stream, Councillor Bird.
Right, okay.
That wasn't brought to my attention under any.
My apologies to the members.
Okay. Okay then. So I'd just like to say thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could we also reinforce the members about the backgrounds that they're showing? We've been told it time and time again, nothing political in the backgrounds.
I didn't really see where that's political, but
no, I don't see where it's political.
No, but there we go. We're not getting into that. We're not getting into that debate. Thank you.
Wow, very proud of what I am. So yes. I'm not. But I will do as I'm asked.
Okay, thank
you. But I won't remove that.
Okay. So I'd just like to say thank you to all the members tonight. It's been a bit of a challenge with connections and everything. But thank you to the staff. We got there in the end, and I close the meeting at 17:50. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just like to stay where you are until